Extended techniques for clarinet. Here are 5 of my favourite or more common techniques used to give colour or contrast in your pieces. The first one is flutter tongue or frullato, and I do this by rolling my tongue. Usually you do this against the roof of your mouth, a bit like rolling an R. But on clarinet you actually do it by rolling your tongue near the tip of the reed. Some players also do it by sort of a gargling sound in their throat, and it sounds like this. As opposed to a normal sound. So it makes the sound a little bit dirtier. Notice there that I'm pretty much using the flutter tongue in the lower register of the clarinet where it's much easier. I'm quite fortunate that I can do this up high as well. But it is a little bit more challenging in the upper register. It can be also nice to use frullato or flutter tongue with some singing as well. There I was singing the same pitches as I was fingering, or I could also sing different pitches. Again, much easier in the lower register of the clarinet. The symbol for flutter tongue, you can either write FLZ dot above the notes, or you can use the tremolo sign, the 3 lines on the stem of the notes. The second technique I'm going to talk about is breath or air sounds, sometimes called Aeolian technique. So I can play my normal fingerings using just breath. Or then I can also transition from just air sound to breath. And it's particularly good, the clarinet, at playing extremely soft, so it can be quite a nice effect. And normally I can do this with my normal embouchure, like a closed embouchure. Or I can actually also do it with an open embouchure where I lower my jaw. I get a bit more air sound here, but I would need more time to transition back to playing with normal embouchure. The third extended technique I'm going to be talking about is glissando, probably made famous in Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Notice a bit of vibrato I was also using there. So this is a really long, slow glissando in the upper register of the clarinet. It's definitely easier in the upper register from the D on the 4th line of the stave. The clarinet has open tone holes, which makes these really quite easy to do. Tends to be a little bit harder down low. To rely a little bit more on my fingers sliding across in the low register, whereas in the upper register I'm using more of my throat or oral cavity as well as sliding across the keys. So there's really slow glissandi, but also small little pitch bends can be quite successful too. Or down low. Using little lines between the notes to suggest upward inflection or downward inflection. The fourth extended technique I'm going to talk about is multiphonics, something quite commonly used on clarinet. You heard me talk a little bit before about the clarinet overblowing at a 12th from the low E. So these, I can get some of these odd numbered harmonics at the same time. Here I was actually glissandoing up the different harmonics in that spectrum from a low E. And I do this by using my throat, the shape of my oral cavity, my air, and also my lips, my embouchure. So in this particular case, it's quite a dramatic one that you might use if you just want a really loud, rude kind of effect. I could also perhaps do this trilling to another note, so low E to low F. Xenakis used these quite wild multiphonics in his piece for clarinet and cello, Charisma. I think it's worth considering when you use multiphonics whether you want it just to be an effect where you could write the word wild or soft and subtle, or whether the pitches are really important in your particular chord or tonality. Soft multiphonics are equally successful. I'll play here a beautiful dyad of a major 10th. And here I'm playing an upper pitch and trying to underblow or get the harmonic below that I'm playing. You can find these fingerings really online, they're all over the place. But I think one important thing as a player that we need is it's a good idea to write a suggested fingering when you are going to use a multiphonic on the score. The fifth and final extended technique I'm going to talk about on the clarinet is microtones, or perhaps quarter tones. So these are all the pitches between the semitones, and clarinet is pretty good at getting many of these because, of course, there are open holes on the clarinet. It's also used quite a lot in klezmer as well as contemporary classical music. That was a quarter tone scale in the upper register on the clarinet. So you might like to use these, perhaps even in a klezmer type vibe with some growls. And they're quite easy and fun on the clarinet. And to finish, some other things you might like to look at online or other works you might like to look at. For the basics, I think the Mozart Clarinet Concerto is a really great one to look at ways that articulation is used and the various characteristics or traits of the range or registers of the clarinet. Likewise, for a more wild version, using some of these microtones and multiphonics for the clarinet, check out Ablauf, A-B-L-A-U-F, by Lindbergh. It's pretty wild and really great. And finally, there's a great online resource by Heather Roach, heatherroach.com, where she does really go into a lot of detail about many of these extended techniques. And I also suggest you check that one out. Have fun writing for the clarinet.